Hi, friends. It's Sarah, the Fat Culture Critic. So it's been a little while since I put out a video. Um, there was one that was just for patrons. It ended up that way, but mostly I I've been have been dealing with some stuff. Um, I there's some emotional stuff and some physical stuff, and I've decided to talk a bit about it. So this is your warning up front that I'm going to talk about health stuff and medical trauma and anti-fat stuff and eating disorder stuff. Yeah, if any of that is not up is not a good thing for you today, then no worries. And also this is probably going to be very disorganized and rambly. So if you don't want to be here for that, that's again, just giving you a heads up on what the content is. And also, okay, so I am sharing this, but I'm not looking for pity. I really don't like pity. And I'm definitely not looking for health advice. I will block you. Um, so I've been diagnosed with diabetes, type 2. Um, and I'm having some issues getting my head around that. uh, I I've been feeling like something's wrong for a while. Right now, I don't have my own GP. I was getting health through the university. And then when I graduated, um, it was after COVID, and I'm just kind of sitting on a waiting list for someone. So I've had to get health care through walk-ins, and particularly through virtual walk-ins, because the the actual walk-ins are almost impossible to get um, at the moment. So, and is I've had some difficulty figuring out how to use the virtual system. Because there is this thing called adaptive function, which in people with ADHD, and particularly people with ADHD and autism, is really bad. Adaptive function is kind of like using your executive function to do life stuff. You're never going to see the state of my apartment. Um, and it's things like making doctor's appointments and stuff like that. It's just like this is the thing I do not have spoons for. It's very, very, very difficult. You also have to do it. And yeah, anyway, so for quite some time I've been feeling like something wasn't right. But struggling to actually get into actually seeing someone. Um, and particularly I knew I have not been medicated for my ADHD for quite some time, and had not been medicated for my depression either. I have both. And so I was like, not in a good way. And like, I have a tendency to have a lot of health anxiety. So I can kind of be like, I either ignore things completely, or I think it's like I've become kind of obsessed with it. And it reached the point where I actually had to call my mom and be like, please tell me I'm not having a heart attack. Um, because I was having a panic attack. Um, and yeah, I was, it was just a panic attack. But it was, yeah, need to make doctor's appointment now. Um, and even then, it took a month because that's the state of the healthcare system right now. And Canada's system is better than others, and that's still the state of the healthcare system right now. And they can't actually give me the ADHD medication because they can't give controlled substances on the telehealth because they can't actually, yeah. Um, so but at least I am on the they gave me a referral, and I'll be seeing someone in a couple months to get my ADHD to and a psychiatrist. So, and they were able to give me Prozac. So which at least helps my brain somewhat function better. Um, but that means that the last 2 months, I have been doing the medication adjustee thing, which, if you've never experienced, is a little like being seasick on dry land. Is the best way I can describe it. Which is part of why I have not been making videos. Um, yeah, but that has largely sorted itself out, and oh boy, do I feel much better. The world still feels like a dumpster fire, but at least I don't feel like I'm looking at it from through the bottom of a well. So anyway, I also at the appointment said I think there may be something physically wrong as well. Um, and that's when I got the blood work and why I got the diagnosis of diabetes. So that is the thing I am trying to get my head around right now. You know, just what I've always wanted, a difficult to manage chronic condition on top of the chronic condition that makes it difficult for me to manage things. Sometimes you have to laugh, right? um and I know there's plenty of people who have it worse than me, and people who have it better, and it is what it is. But I've been reading about shame for this video that I'm hoping to have out next month, and thinking about sort of the way that shame freezes us and separates us, and I think that's why I'm talking about it, because like especially fat people, we have a lot of shame and stigma around our health stuff, around talking about it and talking about our anxieties. And so I hope that maybe if I talk openly about my stuff, it'll make it a little easier for somebody else to talk about theirs. Um, yeah, try to reduce the stigma, because this is the thing. I'm adjusting to this illness, this health condition that has all this tricky stuff to manage. And it really doesn't help that there's this huge big baggage that comes along with it that is just pure societal bullshit narratives. Like there's two narratives in my life about diabetes. One is that my grandfather had type 1. Um, that he was diagnosed with when he was at university in the 1930s. Um, and it was this big thing that altered his life, and that his entire life and the family's entire life had to focus around managing. And so there's some kind of like intergenerational family trauma stuff. And yet, we're all very proud of Ernie that he managed it beautifully. He lived into his 80s. There's a medal somewhere that he got. There's a couple for when he lived 60 years with it, and when he was 60 with it, and when he was 80, and like he was the oldest living person who had lived with it for the longest in the UK at the time that he died, and possibly in the world. It's just the records. Um, so there's that sort of family stuff. And I know that's type 1, which is different. And also, hey, it's not the 1930s, it's not the 1950s where when my grandmother had to like boil syringes. And I have, even though I have a lot in common with my grandfather, good and bad, I'm not him. And again, not it's not the 1930s. But still, family stuff. There is this narrative about this, and then this thing that made Ernley give up rowing and so many things he loved, and that had to be the center of the family. And the other, baggage is the anti-fat obesity epidemic bullshit, the moral panic that has transformed diabetes instead of not as a chronic health condition that be managed, but as like this stigmatized sort of Damocles thing that you know, people tell fat people all their lives. If you don't fix this, you're going to get diabetes and it's going to kill you. um, and and you're going to deserve it. Um, you don't, you don't want to know the comments that I get that I delete about, how I'm going to die and it's my fault and da da da. And then it like goes into this sort of very shamey narrative, um, where people are like, there are people who would feel justified and pleased that I got this diagnosis, which is such a mind fuck because it makes them right. Um, and like even okay, honestly, the words came out of my mouth yesterday, telling my sister about this. I've done this to myself. Me, I've been researching anti-fat bias. I've been reading the books. I've been talking. I talked to you about it. I said that myself. The words came out of my mouth, and my sister pointed out that no, people don't do this to themselves. I really appreciate her pushing back on me, because yeah, um, those aren't my thoughts. That's the narrative that we've been taught. And it's so ingrained that I heard it coming out of my own mouth. Yeah. Um, and and I need to find a dietitian, and I'm looking for someone with, who has a weight neutral approach. And I'm doing. I'll find that for myself, please. Again, no health advice. Um, I will seek the expert help myself. Because like so much of the information out there is bound up with weight loss and stuff, and like if my weight changes due to this, um, like it might, and I need to be okay with that. Um, and it's complicated, and I don't want to do intentional weight loss. Um, not even as I worry about doing it even in a health as part of sort of the management thing because my experience with intentional weight loss is that I have done it extremely well and lost a lot, but then, you know, as with almost everyone, it stops working after a time. Um, and as and I'm one of those people where after I lose, I have always um ended up putting on more weight and in worse health, and that is the thing that I really don't want to um be bigger than I am. And I'm not, and I don't say that, um, as I don't say that as judgment on anyone bigger than me. It's as I am. I already struggle with things like my knees and interacting with the built environment because the built environment is not made for larger people. Um, and I don't want that to get even more difficult. Um, I but I also I have the idea of becoming smaller. Also has all this stuff around, people praise you for when you lose it, and it just kind of reveals what they thought of you when you were bigger. Um, and it reveals just a lot of anti-fat ideas. And of course, and like I have a history of eating disorders and disordered eating behavior, not um and it's restrictive actually. And people always assume that fat people have binge eating disorder. But no, I have a history of starving myself and harming myself as punishment. So the whole thing of trying to I'm going to have to monitor all my stuff and everything I eat, and that is complicated because to me that's bound up with a history of overdoing that, and I have to do that in a healthy way now. And that's going to be a difficult balancing act. Um, and I have a history of that sort of taking over my life, which I don't really want it to do that either. But I need um, to learn to do it specifically for you know watching my blood sugars, and I want to take I want to take a body neutral approach. I want to be like I believe that my body is what it is, and if gets bigger, if it gets smaller, it shouldn't matter. Um, I just try to live the life that I can as best I can in the body that I have. Um, but I live in this society that puts so much stigma around being bigger, and it's complicated. It's just so complicated. And if I become smaller, if I become bigger, neither way would I be any more worthy as a person. Um, Even if society treats me as if I would be more worthy if I was smaller, and I would be less worthy if I was bigger, that is not right. And either way, like I can't imagine any circumstances in which I would be not fat, even if I get smaller, even if say that Ozempic is a possibility if the medicine they're trying me on now doesn't work. Um, and even in the circumstance, if I were to be smaller than I am, it's unlikely that I would be not fat. Um, but even if I was, nothing I've ever said about fat justice changes, no matter what size I am. We still need justice for fat people. We are still as worthy humans, whatever our waist circumference, whatever whatever our blood sugar measurements. um, I've been working. Well, I started work over a year ago on a video about healthism, which I had to sort of put aside because I was having a lot of health anxiety, and it was making me more anxious every time I tried to work on the thing. It's really important, and I really, really, really want to finish it because there's lots of terrific interviews from people. Um, but like this is sort of this is the reality of it is that we have all these narratives around what health is, and how, the people who do the good things and are the good people are supposed to have the good health, which obviously is bullshit. When you put it like that, it's bullshit. And yet we get taught these, and we hear these narratives when someone gets ill. Oh, how can he's such a nice person, he's so healthy, how can that happen? But sometimes things happen. That's part of having a human body. And I think we're all really scared about having our human bodies and them not being in control of them, because the ultimate scary thing is death, which is going to happen to all of us. And it's a thing. Fat people are told all our lives, it's going to kill you, it's going to kill you, you're going to die, you're going to die, you're going to die, you'll never make it to 30, you'll never make it to 40. I am 44. um, and however long or short my life, that doesn't indicate virtue. And there are things we control and so many things we don't. And it would be, as someone who has a lot of anxiety, it would be great to believe that there were things I could do that would definitely make sure I didn't die for never. As a kid, I used to I was the sort of kid who would lie awake at night, like terrified at the thought of, that this brief candle will blow out someday. It is a terrifying thought. Um, and it would be nice to believe that there was a special magic formula that meant that, if you were good and did all the right things, then you could have the longest candle possible for the blowing out bit. But that isn't true. You can be like the healthiest person alive who does all the good, right, healthy things, and then have your heart stop on a tennis court because you had COVID. And then the thing is that there are things that you can do to have, but the things that you can do is like, you can be wealthy. um, or you can be in the right postcode. Like, those aren't things you can actually do. They're just more random chance to a fair degree, or if it's not chance, it's the system, broken fucking capitalist system. And then there's luck. And then, of course, there's the people who have had all of their hospitals bombed, who have and who have no access to medication and things. Um, that's not luck. That's other people being evil. Not evil's the wrong word. I don't actually believe in evil. I just don't know what other word to call it. Um, yeah, this is me. This is very rambly, but yeah. So I am faced with this difficult to manage condition, and I have the makes things difficult to manage chronic condition. Um, and which tells me that even if there isn't a sense of justice in the universe, there does apparently and seem to be a sense of irony. So you have to laugh. And I have to make the best of things. And so, getting medication and getting books and um, the great joys having this under the system that is that is barely holding together, means that there is a diabetes education center at the hospital. But because of all the stuff and the shortages, it's now referral only. But I guess my doctor didn't know that, the telehealth doctor. Um, so when I called, they told me that it's referral, and I have to go back and get a referral from the doctor. But I can't get in to see the doctor for another month, actually 6 weeks. So, uh, so that's fine. And then I went to get the blood sugar monitor and discovered that had I gone, had I gotten the referral to go through the education system thingy, the education thing would have been able to help me get one from the province. um, but I can't wait to start monitoring everything for the 6 weeks to get the appointment, and then however long it would take them to get to actually see me. So luckily, I am able to get the monitor myself, and we'll figure it out. And yeah, I'm not in the position my grandfather was in, you know, in the 1930s when they couldn't even synthesize insulin. And I don't actually need insulin. I need so I can have medication that can make my body produce it. Just, we'll have to learn how to do all the right things and deal with the side effects and all that stuff. So, and this is just me kind of spitting. So I should probably stop. But yeah, I will figure it out. Um, I am in a better position than a lot of people would be. Still frustrating, um, but it could be a lot worse. So I will make the best of it. But it still is very stressful. And I really wish that all this discourse and narratives and stuff that from the moral panic wasn't in my head. Um, but I wanted to talk about it because I don't deserve to have all that in my head. You don't deserve to have that in your head. When it comes to health stuff, there is no deserve. I didn't do this to myself. You didn't do it to yourself or not do it to yourself. Things happen. And yeah, had I done things differently, something else might have happened, or it might not have happened. And it is what it is. And there's no moralizing about it, doesn't actually do any good. It doesn't do me any good, doesn't do anybody any good, except the systems that make things harder. They benefit from us not talking about it and from us feeling shamed and being and going inward and like beating ourselves up because the healthcare system shouldn't be crumbling. Because there should be more medical people, because we as a society should not be making people go into debt to get the training to help us. um, I shouldn't be, my doctor shouldn't be wondering what's the most cost effective medication to give me. But that is part of the process, because even though our system isn't as capitalistly dictated as the States is, it's still somewhat that when it comes to medication, we do. Um, and I know that it doesn't have to be that way, because when I lived in Britain, all my medications were £5 when I lived in Scotland. And then before I left, they were all free. that is a doable thing. There were other major problems. I may tell the story someday about trying to get psychiatric care under the NHS. That was not fun. um, but yeah. Well, if there is a deserve, then we all deserve. We all deserve better. So yeah, I'm gonna. If I hear myself thinking self-blamey thoughts, I'm going to interrupt myself. And if you find yourself having shamey thoughts and self-blamey thoughts about any stuff that you're dealing with, try and interrupt that because we're all just people doing the best we can in the bodies that we have. And it's all we can do. And we should really do a better job of supporting each other and not turning illnesses and conditions and disabilities into a moral panic. So yeah, I'm sorry, as that I'm a fat person, I have diabetes. These things are correlated. It doesn't make it causational, doesn't make it my fault. It is what it is. So, that was a ramble. I hope it was useful, um, or enlightening or something. I really appreciate my Patreon supporters, who have continued to support me. Um, I really want to get this shame video out next month, or at most in July. Um, I've been really doing some interesting research. And I want to start putting out more videos and talking about media representation and things like I have seen Bridgerton season 3, or the first part, and I will at some point. I should record a discussion about Penn and Colin and that. Yeah, now that I'm at least on the happy brain pills, I should hopefully be able to be a bit more productive. And talking of productivity, I have a thing coming up on the 20th. Um, some of you have probably seen my Christmas Carol readings. Well, this year we did one to raise money for Palestinian Children's Relief Fund, and also we picked a GoFundMe, and we're going to do another one. We're going to do on the 20th on summer solstice. We're going to be doing another live reading as a fundraiser with a lot of the same people and some other friends. And because it's the middle of summer, we're going to be reading Midsummer's Night Dream. So and we're going to, again, be doing it as a fundraiser for Gaza, probably going to pick a family off Operation Olive Branch for people to donate to. And that should be a lot of fun. I've been busy casting all my friends as fairies and lovers and players. And yeah, it should be a lot of fun. So yeah, come to that. And and also, like, if you can think of something you can do to raise funds for someone on the Operation Olive Branch list, or for Palestinian Children's Relief Fund, or if you can think of something to do to fundraise for Gaza, it's a good thing to do and you feel better. So yeah, we're gonna do that. We're gonna put some good in the world. So yeah, come and join us for that on the 20th. I haven't sorted the time yet, but it'll be announced. It'll be announced, and I'll tell you all about who's playing who. in due time. So yeah. Um, and I would like to thank all my patrons sincerely, and their names are in front of you. So thank you very much.